Season's greetings, debaucherous goblins.
Hello, Goblin Town. We have dead foliage because it's that time of year and I feel like celebrating. Do you ever wonder if Santa Claus, maybe he was a red cap? Like to dip his hat in the blood of reindeer that just couldn't pull his sled fast enough?
Hooey, those red caps. You really love yourself a red cap, don't you?
You know, I really do. And since you made me put this goofy thing on about 10 minutes ago, I'm gonna lead with that
You're
joke,
leaning
and
into it.
you earned it.
All right.
Yep. Well, Goblin Nation, we are back for another round. Hi.
Of Goblin Salvage Rights.
Is that where we are? I'm Erik.
And today's topic are holidays.
Holidays. We are festive goblins today, and we'd like for you to join us.
Absolutely. Before we jump into the topic, though, let's talk about our most recent games.
Hey, we did one this week.
We actually did two.
Two, yeah. And in fact, there was a red cap in the game, maybe?
Well,
kind of, sort of. He was on the other side of the door.
We alluded to a red cap.
Yeah. And sometimes that's plenty, believe me.
Absolutely. So we did Edgewatch on Saturday.
Edgewatch, because you're going to be hearing that word for many, many, many more episodes to come. Yeah, it's still a festival, a 3-month festival in the city of Absalom, center of the world. And there's just a lot of shit going on. So I guess we're still doing detective stuff. What did we even do this week? It felt like a soap opera to me.
It was a wrap up between book 1 and book 2. So I think
that awkward between books.
We end capped a lot of the story stuff that we've been building up for each of our individual characters. We had a boss fight, kind of, except they ran away.
Yeah, that was a faux boss fight. I'm rather proud of that one, even though I didn't present it the way I'd intended.
I was expecting full blown combat, and then both bosses ran away, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
I gave you guys clues as to why that happened. What? And do you remember what happened when she ducked back through the wall, through the portal to disappear from combat?
Tell me.
It wasn't a he. It wasn't the guy you were looking for.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
The image faded away, and it was a woman with big steer-like horns that you met before in a previous episode. Anyhow, it was a lot of red herrings. But that's the kind of episode it was. It was a red herring episode, and festival backdrops behind a red herring episode are a thing that I've toyed with in my imagination for a while, and I'm telling you, I struggle with it. Anytime holidays or festivals come up in a game session, I struggle with trying to find ways to make them relevant.
Really?
Yeah. It's not a thing I've talked about a lot, but it's my whole 1 through 20 campaign I'm running for you guys. It's all in a festival, and I just feel like I want to talk about it for the next hour or so.
Okay. All right, cool. And then on Wednesday, we did my game. We had an epic fight where you almost died immediately.
Again.
Yep. Almost immediately.
Yeah.
And then
1 round of combat before I even got to act, I went from 41 hit points to 1 hit point.
A vampire spawn attacked Erik and did very well for themselves.
Rather well. Yeah, I'm proud of that spawn. I want to go work for that spawn. Make him teach me how to do the same thing.
But the combat was cut short because of a character moment. And Gabby said it was rad. Yeah. So I don't know if it worked.
I love Gabby as a player. She's so easy to please. It makes my heart
Okay, so happy. It didn't work?
No, I'm not saying it didn't work. I think it was just fine. Yeah. A lot of fun theatrical moments.
Yeah, and that's kind of what our Wednesday game boils down to, I think, is a lot of fun theatrical moments most of the time.
Yeah.
It's the least amount of combat and technical gameplay that I've ever done in a game I've run. Yeah. Normally, my games are like dungeon crawly, I'm running monsters, and we're kind of playing more of not a war game, but like we're playing the combat game of Pathfinder. We're playing a dungeon delving game of Pathfinder.
Yep.
And this is so not that. So out of my element. Yeah. My normal DMing element. It's been really challenging, honestly.
I can totally see it, and I think you're pulling it off. And it's kind of like how it seems like you're pulling away from combat, and I'm trying to learn how to do combat, and we're both stretching, growing pains, growing up.
We're growing as individuals.
We're not going to be baby goblins forever.
Not forever. Yeah. But you can stay a baby goblin as long as you want.
Yeah.
Cool. So you want to jump into the topic? Holidays. It's currently December.
December 6th. I don't know. Something. I had a birthday on the 4th, so whenever that was.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm like not a day over 27. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Did you enjoy the minis? Did you get a chance to look at them yet?
The minis.
I painted you minis for your birthday.
You painted me. They were excellent. Yes, I was very happy
I'm not
about
fishing
those.
for compliments. I'm not actually looking for.
Okay.
Like,
I'm always terrible at this sort of thing.
No.
But yeah, they will hit the table sooner or later because they gotta. That's the purpose of minis is not to sit there forever, but to join
enter the
circle.
fray. Yeah, I painted some one last preamble ramble before I jump in. I've been working on my orc army.
Those are so cool. I love how like you turn them and then it's almost like Mother of Pearl, only like a sunny version.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my first test model. I've got my second test model here. He has blue pants.
Would you call that technique?
Which one?
It's kind of like when you do this, it goes from
zenithal
yellow to
highlighting.
orange. Say that again.
Zenithal highlighting.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I will never remember that.
Yeah. So what I did with this is basically I primed it. I found a cool way to paint yellow using pink via Goobertown Hobbies, which is a pretty cool channel that I follow on YouTube. Basically, I primed it pink. I did an undershadow with an airbrush in like a dull pink. I did a top zenithal highlight in white, and then I hit the whole thing in.
Keep going.
I hit the whole thing in Dollar Roundy's Indian yellow. So the pinks turned into oranges and the whites turned into yellows.
Okay.
Basically.
That sounds exceedingly complicated, and I'm rather happy to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah. So. And then I did some more painting and did my greens for the skin, and I did a Agrax Earthshade wash, and I actually studied a lot of the art for Age of Sigmar, orcs specifically, Oryx, so that they could copyright it, And a lot of their armor is painted and it's chipping away on the edges. So a lot of the edging is silver, because it's been rubbing against stuff.
Sure.
So I actually edge highlighted the entire thing metallic silver.
You're using a lot of words that I don't understand, but it looks rather impressive.
Thanks.
And I'm really happy to see it on the table these days.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really proud of that one. And hopefully I'm trying to talk my local group into doing a escalation league where we start with a small army painted and then we slowly build up a bigger painted army. I have 2,500 points worth of orcs ready and waiting to get painted, and I'm almost pretty much done with my test models, so I am ready.
I love the name Escalation League. It sends my imagination to really cool places, and one of those is festivals and holidays. Because I mean, what are those if not escalations of a celebration and the human experience?
Absolutely. So you want to get cracking? Do you want to cover? So the reason this topic stems from this amazing book, The Lost Omens Travel Guide.
It's the dark horse of 2022, in my opinion, for the whole
can we
Pathfinder
just
line.
Wax poetic about this book for like 2 minutes? Because
nobody in our circle expected this to be anything. And this is one of my favorite books in the collection at this point.
It's easily one of the best pieces of world building I've ever seen published for a TTRPG.
Yeah, is there any crunch in here? Because I don't remember seeing any.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think so. Like, no, wait, yeah, there are some items. You can call that crunch. There's some items in here.
Yeah, but there's no like extra classes or abilities and
there's
a junk ton of feat taxes and crap like that.
No, it's largely aimed at DMs and world building.
I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit of a
terrible idea.
TOC. No, don't do that.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, we'll put it in. I'll cut it in post. But yeah, so I mean, there's a section on planar portals. Yeah, but there's not a section on like an archetype or something like that, which is good.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know.
Someday Pathfinder will catch up to the planar thing.
I don't know if this hurts their sales by not publishing like player driven options, but I absolutely adore this book. I would love to see a zoomed in version for each individual region, like smaller micro region, like the Mediterranean South, Mediterranean North.
Oh, Garoon versus Avestan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would love to see just like more specific, and obviously they're covering those with the Impossible Lands book that just came out, which I haven't yet been able to look at.
That's true.
So
there's probably a bunch of like first edition stuff you can just Google up right away.
Yeah, but there's never been anything like this published in first edition, in my opinion. There's so many.
It's a new direction. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's so many visceral, human-like touches. It's just so personal. The whole book it talks about food. It talks
As
about
a player, I can build
things.
every character concept around each chapter in this book
Absolutely.
and have a different character type. I mean, this isn't just empty calories in this book. This is fucking nutrition, man. This is one of the reasons why I'm a role player over a rules muncher. Is content like this.
And this is a rule player's book. This is a rule player's book, and I think that's the best way to put it, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Waxing Poetic done. It's fucking amazing.
I'm gonna put my tongue back in my mouth. So what? So what?
So what?
I mean, festivals and holidays. So what? Why do we care as players? Why do we care as GMs?
I want to say, as a GM, festivals are, if nothing else, one of the best ways to start a campaign.
Okay, I'm listening.
There are a lot of APs. One comes to mind, Edgewatch, obviously.
Yep.
But I think there are a few other APs, especially in first edition. And
Rise of the Rune Lords had the Swallowtail Festival.
Yeah, exactly.
That was like page 1.
That's classic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives the players a reason to be there because there's something going on.
Sure.
And it gives a reason for the city and the municipality to be in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes the bad people are taking advantage of that chaos.
Yeah.
And
it provides great cover for doing dark deeds.
Exactly. So if anything else, it's a great way to start your adventure.
Yeah.
But if you want to go a little bit deeper than that, you can imagine that the world is a character.
Mm-hmm.
And festivals are a great way to show some characteristics of that character, some flavor of that character, some background of that character, you know, like the culture that the players are presumably playing in, have festivals because there are majorly important things in cultures, and those majorly important things require festivals to be celebrated.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about character-driven fiction a lot these days, whether we're watching movies or reading books, graphic novels, whatever. Character-driven fiction, and the phrase "setting as character" been bandied about for forever. And having a festival helps to create a sense of character and personality to a region. So, for instance, if you're looking at the devil-ridden nation of Cheliax, what would that look like if there is a small community within the heart of Cheliax that has a celebration dedicated to Sarenrae, the Dawnflower, the goddess of redemption, by fire. And, Asmodeus is all about fire, Sarenrae, all about fire. So there's like this Venn diagram of separate, ideologies that can overlap, and a celebration can encompass both of those.
Absolutely.
So all of a sudden, you've got these disparate groups coming together. But are they really? And it's cool. I dig it, and it's ripe with opportunity for creating like tools to give your players. If I were to say, "Hey, I'm going to run a story set in Portland, Oregon, and it's in December and it's Christmas." Okay, it's 9:00 in the evening, and you've all had your supper, and you've got your hands on this cup of hot cocoa. What do you do? Well, what do you know about Christmas? There's lights. Okay, we go out, we drive around, and we go see some lights. Okay, well, there's a snowman there, and the guy's a jerk who lives in the house. Okay, we go kick over the snowman, and we toilet paper his house. I know it's just a Halloween thing, but we're going to do it with like Christmas ribbons. Every festival has inherent understandings that the players have, and they can sort of sandbox their way through that experience without the GM saying a whole heck of a lot. Festivals and holidays are a really powerful tool to turn the players loose on a setting. So if you have like a game on rails, everything I said applies. If you have a game in a sandbox, everything I said applies. So I like to think of this entire book as a toolbox for players to just go hog wild within a certain context.
I love that you find this book to be a player-driven toolbox, because I really saw it as a DM-driven toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
For me, as a way to, I don't know, I'm really bad, I think, at describing an area and making players really feel like they're there.
Okay.
Because in a lot of ways I lack nuance. And I think that these holidays and the other things that are covered in the book give nuance to those experiences. You know, I wrote down like a formula for making any holiday you want in your setting. And it's literally just God plus occupation or season equals a holiday.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or all three, really.
Every deity in Golarian's got holidays somewhere going on.
So if you're in a campaign and you want a holiday or a festival to be coming up, because it creates some dramatic tension, and maybe your game is lacking a little dramatic tension. Maybe the players don't know what to do next. Maybe they're doing some downtime, and you want to punctuate that downtime with a little bit of character drama. You say that there's a festival coming up in the middle of their downtime, and let's say that you want to highlight a god that's important in the through line of the entire story. So you pick the god. You've already got the god. You pick a profession, probably one that's appropriate for
sure, like for Aristel, we might be talking about hunters and gatherers.
Yeah. Or
hunters.
like they say in the book, Gazra for sailors, something like that. Probably a profession that's important to the town. If you're in a logging city,
sure,
then it's the logging festival or something related.
Ready-made NPCs right there.
Done. You've got that. All you have to do is just start pulling ideas out of your butt and throwing on some paper and saying, this is what the thing is.
Yeah.
That's it.
That all makes sense. And you've heard me say it before. I'm going to say it again. And probably for the next 8,000 episodes we do. At the end of every one of these kinds of discussions, as a player and as a GM, I have to ask, why should I give a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, what value does this really bring to the experience? And since we're talking a little bit about writing and, the craft of storytelling and how stories work, I got to bring up Chekhov's gun. Is that a phrase you're familiar with?
No, never heard of it.
So you've seen a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies by this point, and at some point there's a cliched gun on the mantle, right? So the idea is if you're going to show a gun on the mantle, then that gun better go off by the time the climax rolls around, the third act kicks in. That's how I feel about festivals and holidays. And part of this is because I happen to be running an egregiously long campaign.
It's not that bad.
Where everything has the backdrop of a holiday, and I just don't feel like I'm presenting it well. All that aside, I feel like if a game, and this is true as me as a GM or me as a player, I feel this way about both approaches. It's got to serve a function, it's got to serve a purpose, and it's got to the plot needs to hinge on it in some way. If I'm playing in somebody else's story and it happens to be, I don't know, pick a holiday in here, Merry Mead, a Druman holiday, where all the Caden Kaleans drink all of the previous year's beer, and then they sort of drown their, whatever didn't get resolved. It's a way to move forward. If I do all that, and the plot has nothing to do with it, I'm going to forget that part of the adventure 7 weeks from now when I'm thinking back on it. I'll remember, the combats and the funny moments and all that, but there was a holiday there, right? The plot didn't hinge on it at all. So it could have been that holiday. It could have been like Loyalty Day in Jelliix. Could have been Founding Day in Varizia, and the story wouldn't have changed. If that's the case, I feel like that's a seriously missed opportunity. I think that's bad storytelling. At the very least, I think it's sort of like empty calories of an experience. So I've spent this entire week trying to figure out how to not do that in my own game. How do I create the Radiant Festival as an essential holiday where my adventure I'm running you through, it can't be the same if it's any other holiday. And that idea just got me like really excited.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited to like work through it out loud with you right now in this context. So Chekhov's gun, if you're going to have a holiday, it needs to be relevant by the third act.
That reminds me of, one of the basic things you learn in film school, which is everything in the frame is there for a reason.
Yes.
Everything in the story is there for a reason.
Should be.
It should be. And if it's not, it's dead weight.
Yeah.
Or it's a darling you need to murder.
Yeah. And I'm not looking to like create a perfect experience.
Obviously
it would be cool, but it's not going to happen. But this is just yet another way to dial in our games because there are so many missed opportunities around the gaming experience. This just doesn't have to be one if we give it just a little bit of forethought. So festivals and holidays can be powerful. And so far in my 30-year gaming experience, they've been weak. And I've got some examples of how I've done them poorly.
Gotcha.
And how I would like to do them better and how I've experienced them poorly. the Swallowtail Festival has a series of huge missed opportunities in Rise of the Rune Lords. But that was sort of like so far back in Pathfinder's, history that they've gotten better with that sort
That
of
was
thing
like
since then.
2006, 2007.
I'll take your word for it. That might have been the Stone Age for all I know.
Okay.
It's way far back.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the biggest examples that I could think of was one of my favorite gameplay experiences from a video game, which was the party mission from a game called Dishonored. I don't know if you're familiar with Dishonored. It's like a Victorian, for anyone who hasn't played, it's like a Victorian a diesel punk. I'm not good with genres, but it's like some sort of punk setting. And you basically infiltrate a party, and it's a party where everyone is wearing masks, and the protagonist,
a masquerade.
It's a masquerade, yeah. And the character's playing someone who wears a mask, but he's like a murderer kind of like person. So you fit in, and you get to walk around the party, and you get to hear all these conversations, and you get to learn things about the setting that high society people would only be talking about. And for me, that was like the most engrossing moment I've ever had in one of those games. I remember I sat around for like 2 hours.
Immersion in a bottle.
Just like walking around, listening to every one of their conversations.
Yeah, that's my Assassin's Creed experience.
Just hanging out. Yeah. I've heard Assassin's Creed is very much like that.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts, never having played Dishonor, that there is a plot point that's that hinges on the idea of somebody doing something and their identity is concealed because everybody's wearing masks.
That's literally
it earns its keep.
Yeah, that's the whole point. There's the woman you're supposed to murder or disappear has 2 other lookalikes that the one's dressed in red and yellow and green, I think.
Sure.
And you're supposed to determine which one is which by listening to their conversations.
Yeah, and that's kind of that sums up my entire argument in a nutshell. If your plot points don't hinge on some specific facet of that occasion, the festival or holiday, it's just window dressing, it's set dressing, it's masturbatory. It has no it's empty calories. It doesn't push the story forward. It just happens to be a thing that's going on in the background.
And I think that for everyone who's watching, I think Erik has a very writer centric idea of what it means to play D&D and to run D&D. Story driven. Yeah. And that's perfectly fine. Your game doesn't have to be a wonderful novel.
Sure.
Like the bar here,
we could totally play Chutes and Ladders with goblins.
I mean, like the bar we set for, I think the bar we set for ourselves is different. I don't want to say much higher because that's like a gatekeepy kind of.
Sure.
Like
yeah. I don't want to do that.
But like it's definitely a certain kind of experience. You know, we talk a lot about playing a movie in our mind and stuff like that when we're playing D&D.
Sure.
And I just want us to air those grievances and, and definitely communicate like we're talking about a specific style of gameplay,
right? And
using those elements to emphasize that style. But I also think that, you know, as someone especially who's really bad at, I think settings and getting players immersed in settings, I don't think there's anything wrong with a festival going on and the players experiencing a festival, even for an entire session, just so that they can kind of absorb what the feel of a new town is like, especially on the first day or the first session or the first time, you know, it's the city that the campaign starts in. I think I think festivals obviously lend themselves to being plot devices. And if you don't run a plot device through your festival, you should probably ask the question, why did I do that? Right. Because it is empty calories. But at the end of the day, I disagree with the notion that it's completely wasted. I think that there's a lot of cool immersion that could be that you could experience as a player by just experiencing a festival that's important to people. And maybe that leads to character moments naturally. I think a lot of times we as DMs have a plot line in our mind's eye before we get to the table, and then our players surprise us and they talk to people and do crazy things and create characters that we would be dumb to leave on the table.
Sure.
So
yeah, for sure. 100%.
If anything, like I don't know, my DMing style is a lot more improvisational
Mhm.
than yours is, and that happens all the time with me, where Gabby will go and
That name
hold
will come up a lot.
yeah, she'll hold a play behind the bar and try and gather followers
Yeah.
to her commune. And
See, what
those
you're
people now have
describing
names.
is the character moving forward. So either the plot is moving forward or the characters are moving forward. If neither of those are moving forward, that's what I mean by empty calories. So, for instance, the Swallowtail Festival and Rise of the Rune Lords. I've run it and I played in it, and I've had the exact same experience both ways, and I just totally foobarred that whole thing. But you got kids walking down the street and they're shoving drumsticks into their mouth. They got little sparklers or whatever, and they're enjoying the festival. And you wander out into the middle of town, and hey, you look like a strong character, and there's a tug of war rope down there with the mud pit in the middle. Why don't you go do the event, and then why don't you make a couple of strength checks, and we'll see if you win or lose. Oh no, you lost, and now you're all muddy. Ha ha. Okay, now what? It's just a series of those kinds of events that push neither the character development forward nor the plot forward. So that's kind of it. The two, one of those needs to go forward. Ideally, both, but it rarely happens that way.
And I think if you have good players,
Right?
if you have robust players who are interested and invested in the act of creating a character and growing that character as a
Mhm.
narrative device, then they'll naturally do those things. They'll get in a fight with someone because they lost at the tug of war, or maybe they're arrogant and they'll make fun of someone at the tug of war.
That's
That's
character development pushing his story forward.
Exactly.
Yep.
That is when the DM picks that character up and says, "You are now an arch nemesis." and one book later, you will come to get your revenge, sweet loser.
Yeah, what I mean? You're seeding future stories at that point, and that's what GMs need to do.
That's kind of our job in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I mean, that's actually a really good idea, I think, for a future episode, is for us to contrast the improvisational style I have with your much more robustly prepared style. And I'm learning very quickly the pitfalls of an improvisational style to DM.
When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it's feel bad.
It's really rough.
Yeah.
And I'm really wishing that I'm running like some sort of adventure path. If I had that to lean on as rails to keep me going and give me a momentum, that'd be really great. But I don't have that, and it's really difficult. Yeah,
when you don't have that, you have to basically invent everything from whole cloth, and that is a lot of effort. When you're putting down a full-time job, you're taking care of your significant other's needs. God forbid you live in a house with 3 adults, 3 cats, and a dog.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I love having. I'll take all the help I can get from adventures, adventure paths, whatever, and then I'll just break them down and then reassemble them from the ground up, built around the characters.
Absolutely.
But that's all different stuff.
That's another episode for sure. But that's something I definitely think we should talk about.
Sure. I want to give a real world example of like a festival in a way that I think is a good way to do it. So like moots, MOOTS, like Scandinavian moots back in the day when Vikings would go from their different places up there in the north. They would all come to a centralized location, and they would have a moot, which was part celebration. It was an airing of grievances. You'd be able to settle blood feuds there. It served a celebratory purpose. It served a functional purpose. It was a way to lance boils, social boils, and kind of, when we leave the moot, we can survive for another season and then come back next year. And, whatever happens there at the moot, let's say you got 2 guys from 2 different tribes and they're all at the same moot and they've had blood feuds running back for generations, Hatfield and McCoy's type stuff. The plot device at the moot is the combat between them. They're going to settle it once and for all. And then a claim is going to be made on something they're both vying for. That's the plot moving forward, using the festival as a framework for that. And I'm sitting here looking at all the holidays and festivals on the Galarian calendar, and every one of them has some version of that going on there. That's just ripe for exploitation by GMs everywhere, and players for that matter, who know what the festivals are all about. So Scandinavian moots are kind of like my real world example.
And it's probably a festival that like not a lot of us have experience with. Like I definitely don't. I'm not of Scandinavian origin. I don't have, my family is from like.
You're wearing all the accoutrement right there.
yeah. My family's from the British Islands and I guess Germany, but I don't really know that side of my family very well. But yeah, so I mean, like, these festivals are opportunities in a lot of ways for these plot devices.
Yep.
And I think that if you choose to use them, definitely hook in the plot. But if you choose to use them and you don't hook in the plot, you really should be banking on your players creating moments within them. And I think it's probably really good for you to keep notes of all the things they did during the festival and having those jump back out at them in a later.
I love that idea.
At a later time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you had a guffaw and you made a fool of yourself at a festival, you did something socially inappropriate, that could come back to bite the characters. And that would be something that I, as a player, would really remember.
Everybody loves a callback.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And and actions have consequences, and it's really fun to see them, even when they're like comedic ones, especially when they're comedic ones.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the cornerstones of D&D or just TTRPGs in general is the ability to have those callbacks and have those repercussions in a much more understandable way than like whenever we see a video game that does that really well, we're like, oh, the video game did the thing.
Yeah.
But in TTRPGs and role playing, that's what you come to the table for.
Yeah. And then you end up having like inside jokes and, shared experiences that just sort of like evolve above and beyond what's happening in the immediate moment. And then years down the line, you just, callbacks and callbacks and more callbacks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's all that. Are there any festivals in particular that are interesting to you out of this book? I mean, it gave a bunch.
I love Lamash too. My PFS
Of course you do. Let's start with that.
My PFS character, my highest leveled PFS character, I think they were level 12, was a summoner who venerated Lamashtu.
Okay. Let's take a brief moment to talk about what and who Lamashtu is so people get the context.
Let me sidetrack on top of that sidetrack real quick.
Okay.
Zippers exist.
Zippers, like zippers?
Zippers exist in Golarion.
Okay.
That is all. I just thought that was crazy. Like zippers shouldn't exist. Those were made in like the 50s, but apparently they exist. And I'm
guess I haven't thought about it, but in a world where Alkenstari gunmetal is making the rounds, I can.
It's hard for me to suspend my disbelief for Alkenstar in general, let alone the fine tooling and die making it would require to create zippers.
Sure. Yeah.
But this.
But they're zippers.
This tough trends section in the book, page 48. I don't know. They both look freaking rad. So I was like, my verisimilitude is one thing, but whatever that thing is looks pretty rad.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I had a tough time kind of wrapping my brain around when I started digging into Golarion as a GM is the rate of the advance of technology. Yeah. And I had to understand that this is not a medieval simulation.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. I think a lot of players come into the setting with that assumption.
I was one of them back in the day.
I mean, we all are. But like, it's really jarring, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, sure.
But
when you have like a civilization that's been around for 8,000 years, having higher education be a cornerstone of their development, you're going to get zippers at an earlier stage in development.
Yeah. And it's like, if you ever think to yourself, well, things happened in our world in this specific way because of X, Y, and Z, our world doesn't have magic.
Yeah.
And you can pretty much just blanket over magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that just explains away everything. And so long as it does it in a decent way, that helps you.
Maybe somebody wished zippers into existence. Maybe it wasn't tech at all.
It's a genie. Just another genie in Kadira.
It might have been like a precursor to Nex and Geb, kind of Nex's return. Like one of the 7 signs of his returns is zippers became fashionable.
Alkenstar exists, thus zippers must as well. But anyway, you were asking me about
the sidetrack on the side. Yeah, Lamashtu. Like, who is Lamashtu? And then what is this holiday you're talking about?
Lamashtu, let me put on my podcast voice. Lamashtu is the queen, the pregnant queen of monsters in Golarion.
And is she very, very scary?
She is absolutely frightening.
She's freaking terrifying, people. This goddess is not for the faint of heart.
A pregnant knoll-headed demon, greater demon, wielding a flaming and frozen kukri in each hand. Lamashtu is the mother of beasts. She has birthed all of the evil ancestries in all of Golarion.
She's like giving birth every 2 hours. She spits something else out, and it's
chaotic,
bad and evil and terrible, and it has claws and teeth.
Classically chaotic evil.
Yeah.
But as we can see in this,
so why would anybody celebrate this person?
Well, as we can see in this book, the ideas of chaotic evil are being reimagined to be a lot less evil, I want to say.
Sure, yeah.
In the book, they say that this was originally a cult celebration with actual sacrificing of actual people. But in a corner of the world, it has become something a lot more endearing, where multiple different ancestries and cultures of monstrous humanoids can get together and share stories about their disparate cultures and the shared parts between them. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, Allbirth, if I remember right, if I read it right, wasn't it like a joke holiday by a bunch of goblin punt kids who thought it would be funny to have a masquerade and do fake sacrifices?
Yeah, in the name of Lamashtu.
In the name of Lamashtu,
it's supposed to be this like cult, like sacrificing super evil baddie wearing hoods kind of thing.
Right, and we're just a bunch of shithead teenage punt goblins just cutting each other up, and fake pig's blood spreading everywhere.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be cool if like the plot device is somebody at that event did a real sacrifice, but nobody really noticed because of all the fake pig's blood around?
I feel like that's
and then the next day when we go to clean up all of the celebration stuff, there's somebody sitting there on an altar with his entrails like spilling out. That festival will have earned its place in the story at that point because, oh my God, it couldn't have been any other festival in that story.
I mean, that is honestly that's a great hook to start a campaign. It's a murder in place, detectiveness ensues.
Yeah, in a festival that's supposed to be a joke festival with fake deaths, all of a sudden there's
a real one.
Yeah, and we got to investigate because that's how we gain levels.
Yeah, I mean that would be a great way to introduce a campaign, a story about Lamashtu or around Lamashtu or around like monstrous humanoids in general.
See, and if I have a GM that does something like that, me as a player, I'll start paying attention to those kinds of details as a player, and I'll put that in my notes. Okay, we got a festival. That's about a 1-line entry in my player journal. But wait a minute, this festival sparked an investigation, and then you get that flip of fake death, real death. Okay, I'm taking notes now as a player because all of this matters, and my GM's gonna make me know this stuff later when we get to the the climactic moment.
Yeah, those details will be important.
Yeah.
There's nothing more fulfilling than the detailed notes you take being pertinent to the story in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to name drop Tyler. Tyler is the best note taker in any game I've ever had in my life. And I forget so much about my Edgewatch game. And when I do, I just kind of look at that side of the table. And, Tyler, they're like, okay, I got you. Here it is. This is the thing you're supposed to remember. Here's the NPC's name.
So the reverse happens in our Wednesday games all the time.
Well, that's because we drink a lot more in the Wednesday games.
I love that so much. Like just the other day, Gabby was like, oh yeah, that happened in the other game. And she looks over at you and you're just like,
it did?
It did. Yeah, exactly.
Where was I?
Exactly.
Was I there?
And I'm like, yes, my master plan is all coming together.
Oh no, I was on the floor with 1 hit point left.
Yeah. You need to get better at combat, man.
I just need to get into combat.
I feel
I need faster initiatives. That's what I need.
I feel like that combat was perfectly balanced, but
I'm sorry in case you missed that.
Okay. But one of the issues with the combat was, I think that the intentions of the players, like their perceived danger and their actual danger, were very mismatched.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was probably my fault, I think.
I think it was really cool because we were cocky when we showed up to that encounter, and then we were shown that we didn't have a right to be cocky.
Yeah.
And that was cool. That was a great takeaway for me. So I'll bitch and complain about, getting a 40 hit point drop before I got to take my first turn.
Mm-hmm.
But that story moment, that's kind of a defining moment for my character, because my character is a snotty little high school princess girl who happens to be a ghoul, and her dad was this famous necromancer getting ready to evolve to lichdom. My character is she reads Cosmopolitan, and she knows all the latest fashion, and she's just like really full of herself, and she tries to make sure other people understand
how important she is.
How important she is. Right. So to have a scene like that was pretty cool story moment for me.
Cool.
And anyhow, none of that has anything to do with festivals or holidays, but it is like linking the set piece to the plot to create these hooks that I'm going to remember for months to come.
Sweet.
So,
I think one of the other notes I wrote down here was if you're trying to create a important festival for your game as a DM, you don't have to necessarily link it to a god. You can actually link it to a ruler. And the one ruler that came to my mind immediately was Razmir. Like, of course, Razmir has festivals dedicated to himself.
I love Razmir so much.
I know. We basically waxed poetic for like 10 minutes on a previous episode about Razmir. But like, imagine living in this despotic country with this like dictator, and the dictator has a holiday celebrating himself every other week. Like, that in itself, like I can imagine running the players through the first festival where I describe it in detail. And then as the game progresses a week later or 2 weeks later, I let them know that there's another festival.
Yep.
But this time I don't describe it as much, but they have to be there.
Right.
And then it happens again.
It's like Groundhog Day using spy games in East Berlin in post World War II.
Exactly. It's almost as if the rapid pace of the festivals kind of grinds you down into this like fake happiness. It can really help set the tone for the game in the first place.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. You can't have that with a festival celebrating Sarenrae or Asmodeus in the nation of Razmir and get that same effect.
Absolutely.
You have to have that specific festival for Razmiri celebrants. And yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's just like being conscious of the decisions you're making, and then having those decisions have the maximum impact that you can muster. Again, it's not about perfectionism. It's not about doing the best with it. It's just trying to milk it for all it's worth, because this is a shit people remember down the road.
And I want to emphasize that point. Like, as DMs, and I'm talking to you listeners, like as DMs,
there's DMs out there.
Just trying is enough to get your players to remember it for the next year, for the rest of their life.
Yeah. I mean, if your players aren't complete and total douchebags, which I hope nobody is. But
yeah, well, there are those that exist. But like, honestly, I think the perceived expectations of our players is much higher than the actual expectations of our players. So what ends up happening is we worry about all of these
more than we should, more than we need to.
And at the end of the day, people are like, dude, I killed the thing and blah, blah, blah. And it was awesome. And
every 2 weeks I walk away from my Edgewatch game going, oh my God, what have I done? I just need to pack up and stop.
Yeah.
And then like 2 of you guys will be like, Erik, I had a really good time. And I'm like, why? Give me evidence to support your claim.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's my baggage, not yours.
There's a lot of, what do they call that? That feeling where you don't belong.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
There's a lot
for
of
sure.
imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome is real when you're sitting in the GM chair.
Absolutely. So I just want, that to paint this picture, like Erik's talking about trying, you should really try. And trying is literally just writing things down on a notebook and then referring to them during the game. Like, that's literally all it is. It's nothing more than that.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah.
I got a couple other holidays I want to talk about. How much time do we got?
We got like 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, I can cram this in at least 15. So the first one is Merry Mead. There's something really interesting to me about the idea of a celebration dedicated to the god of booze and debauchery, maybe. Caden Killian.
Hell yeah.
It's just...
Excuse me. Caden Killian?
How do you pronounce it? Alien?
All of these years, I've been
Crawdad?
pronouncing
Carabine?
Caden Kalian.
Okay, potato.
Yeah.
But the idea of having like this boozy holiday
Drink your
dedicated
water.
to the god of booze, and it's specifically about drinking up all the drinks we didn't have last, or let me try that again. Drinking all the booze that we couldn't sell or imbibe from the previous year, because it's going to go bad. So we got to get rid of it. So there's this weird economic impetus in the German economy where, hey, we've got a lot of this booze left over. Let's call the Caden Kalians in. The religion, the church will help us out with all this drink. And then they do. And then again, I've got to ask as a GM and a player, well, so what? Why do I give a shit? It's a holiday. Fantastic. Caden Kalian, I love him. Okay, that's cool. Am I going to remember this in 2 weeks? Well, what if the day after that holiday, everybody is waking up, picking themselves up off the floor. They're like, man, I smell terrible. And they take themselves home for a shower. But there's one person left on the floor. And it turns out, no, that's a murder. He was drowned in a vat of beer and he was left on the floor. And it looked like he was passed out stone drunk. And the killer is like, 7 hours he's had to get the hell out of there and beat feet and get away. All of a sudden, that specific holiday with that specific motive, means, and opportunity turns into a murder investigation. If it was any other festival
all of your
or holiday,
festival ideas just end with a murder investigation.
That's because I'm running Edgewatch, and that's where my brain is. But you could do it with anything else. It could be a revenge saga. Mm-hmm. Bury two graves if you're going to go on your revenge. Maybe that guy was your uncle, and you know who the killer is. You don't need to investigate shit. You just need to catch up with them. It could be a chase scene. It could be whatever. But the bottom line is that specific festival resonated with that specific murder. And the way the murder happened, it wasn't somebody getting a knife to the gut. It wasn't, anything else. Mind wiping. It was death by booze at a Caden Kalian religious festival.
And you can imagine the role-playing experience, at least I can, of like the next year's festival is like tainted with that event. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it'll really make people probably celebrate less heartily and stuff.
Sure.
Like
yeah. Remember last year at the festival when my character drowned your uncle in a vat of beer and I ran and no, exactly. It wouldn't be like that.
But yeah, I mean, like, next year's festival people would be warning you about tripping and falling into beer or something like that. And having those callbacks really creates that setting depth, I think.
Yeah. The other thing I like is the idea of like a festival of Sarenrae. I keep bringing her up because fire is always dramatic. The longest day of summer, that's Sarenrae, and that's when I think it's the Albright Festival. What's this thing called? The Sunrot Festival. I just think of like bonfires and shit, being lit up in town or the city or whatever. And then all the Sarenrae worshipers come out and do that. Well, what about the devout Chalaxian home that worships Asmodeus? In their own little, their hearth and home, and they keep their religion private and quiet because they're no longer in Cheliax, and people look at them funny when they do their worship. Well, Sarenrae has fire as a major thing. Chelaxians have fire as a major thing. Dwarven pantheons, those who are the god of the forge. Fire is important for those worshipers too. So what if there's like that festival? Everybody's lighting the bonfires all over town and lighting these small fires on street corners. And then, all these fires are going on. Chelaxians get to come out and participate. They're not doing the Sarenrae worship. They're privately worshiping their own, doing the same activities. The Dwarven worshipers of their own pantheons doing the same activities, right? It's a communal thing where everybody's coming together. They're doing the same thing for different reasons. And the next morning, we find out that, oops, one of those fires happened to be the granary. Who burned down the fucking granary? We should start an investigation.
But someone was burning bodies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that festival was sort of like a cover for this crime, or was a thing that provides resonance once the deed is uncovered. And I love resonance, and when I'm a character, I try to give my GM everything I can so they can provide me moments of resonance. When I'm a GM, I try to do the same for my players, and that's the shit people remember down the road. Is when one thing happens, they don't catch it. And then another thing happens, and they still don't catch it. That third thing happens and they go, fuck, I should have known. The whole time it was right in front of me. It couldn't have happened any other way. It was inevitable, and that's amazing. And I'm gonna look for it next time. So that's as a player and a GM, that's the kind of stuff I look for.
Rad.
Holidays are great for that sort of thing.
What are the other holidays that you had in mind?
I think that was the big one. The Sun Ra Festival, that's the Sarin Ray Fire example. The Merry Mead, which is booze, because who doesn't like booze? And then you brought up the Allbirth, and that was the one I was going to, so I'm glad you did first. Just the idea of a bunch of punk goblin kids like faking this vicious, horrendous ceremony, and then somebody actually does the real thing there.
I love the details.
It's like the movie Scream.
Yeah. I love the details about like the pottery and the dancing and stuff like that, where you have to like steal. They have like a dance competition where you try to steal someone's dance partner, and there's so much depth to that.
There really is, yeah.
Like those are like, I can't ever imagine myself coming up with ideas that cool, but so props to the writers.
Yeah, but
like those are the kinds of little things you can steal from one of these festivals.
Totally,
and just transplant into the one that you're writing for yourself. Like I can literally imagine writing a book of fantasy festivals with cool little things like that. Just like an entire
for sure
100-page book of that.
In A Song of Ice and Fire, the whole Game of Thrones thing, there's literally people who went out and they wrote a cookbook for all of the meals that happened in the books, and there's like real recipes for it. So awesome. This stuff influences, and it just goes down. I was going to say something, commenting directly to what you were talking about. Oh yeah. All the different bits in this book and others like it. The fashion, the dancing and stealing of partners and that sort of thing. What I would consider an amateur mistake I would have made a few years ago on how to do that is take that dancing and stealing of the partner example you did. I probably, earlier GM Erik, would have had that situation with each character in the party at the party. And that hitting that same note 5 times around the table, like it's boring. People are like, oh, okay, we already did that. Oh, we already did that twice. Oh, 3rd times. Okay, this is going to be the next hour and a half of my life, isn't it? But taking that and then using that to sort of build a scene around one specific character, and then taking a different thing and using that to sort of construct a scene around player 2, so on and so forth around. So everybody has their own sort of like unique experience within that shared event. And I think that's super critically important.
I do too. And I think that like, you don't even need to do it for each player. Like a lot of times when I go into a session, I'm kind of thinking this session's kind of for this one player. Like, and I obviously try to spread it out over all the players. But if you go to a festival and one of your players is literally a dancer or has dancing a part of their character, you give them that scene. And, if you're only playing for like 3 or 4 hours, you may not actually have the time to do the entire festival in that setting, that time frame, and give those moments to all the players. And I think that's okay. Sure. Like it's okay to make sure everything's fair for each individual player within the context of one adventure, or rather one session.
Sure.
It should be spread over the greater adventure, I think.
Yeah. And again, that dancing example, if you have the party bard, I'm just going to pull the cliche out of my hat. The party bard who dances, that's what they do. They have a +12 in their performance score or whatever. It's okay to not give that player the dancing scene. What if player number 4 over here has 3 left feet? Give them the dancing scene, because that would be fun.
Absolutely.
And then you have like the actual dancing character kind of just being smug and smirking over here, and they're enjoying themselves because they get to see this person, just be clumsy and fall on their face. Just sort of like subverting tropes and expectations.
Or another option is you could have them both in the dancing event. Yeah. And one of them obviously does well, and one of them obviously doesn't do well. But you can point the camera at the character who doesn't do well as a moment of growth. And the camera kind of jumps over to the character who obviously is going to do well and be like, yeah, you did great.
Yeah.
And use that as a way to contrast the 2 characters and the way they, maybe this is a moment for the character with 3 left feet to show to the party that they're not a sore loser, that they're a great loser, that
Sure.
they're there to just have a good time. And to me, that would be a great character
And
building
maybe
moment.
whoever the classic beauty is at that NPC at that event goes with the Leadfoot dancer, you know,
because they're more
because
fun.
they're cool.
Yeah.
Or whatever. There's just there's just so many different ways to use, you know, festivals, holidays, activities, moments of celebration to help bring out these character moments that push the character forward when you're not busy pushing the plot forward. I love this book. It's
Yeah.
the dark horse of 2022, and I swear to God, I didn't think I was going to buy it, and I don't think any of us in our group really took it seriously before it came out. But once we got our hands on it, it's just it's hilarious.
I
to
think
me
it
how much
really
we love
took all of the Paizo fans by surprise in a lot
Yeah,
of ways. I saw
it did.
a lot of talk about it on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
People are just being like, this book, what? How
Right.
did they not publicize this book more than it is? It's so good.
Yeah, and
That's
it's just
another
really
thing.
cool that like this. What is this? A $45, $50 book, whatever it is. Like,
$40.
yeah, people are buying this when in the classic, you know, D&D paradigm. You bought the book with all the crunch in it. If you're gonna spend $50 on a book,
No player options, no money.
yeah. But this is just such a delightful surprise,
Absolutely.
and I'm gonna be using it immediately when we pick up Edgewatch again, because I got another 16 levels worth of festival to push you guys through.
Yeah, and you have 4 weeks apparently.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Holidays, December's here.
Yeah, woo!
Don't ever expect, if you get to play any games of Dungeons and Dragons or
Cancellations
Pathfinder
will abound.
during the month of December, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
Because it is just a month classically fraught with axes.
Freaking relatives, man. Family's got to stay the hell away. I got to roll my dice. I don't know what all these mothers and sisters are doing wandering into my gaming space.
Cool. Well, I think that's a great place to stop for the night.
Sure. Yeah. Insults
Awesome.
are always a great place to stop.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things that you do. We really appreciate you supporting us.
Yep.
If you want to support the podcast more, you can honestly tell your friends. Get more people subscribing to us and getting their eyeballs on our videos. Erik just had a video that was very popular, teaching everyone how to use his player mats.
I certainly wasn't expecting it. That was a delight.
Yeah, that was an absolute delight. We really appreciate that from everyone, and we hope to see more of it. We hope to make you more stuff. Next week's video is going to be a doozy. Every character class in less than
Oh, God, that's
30
next
minutes.
week?
That's next week, yeah. I'm like halfway
Every
done.
character class in less than 30 minutes.
I'm halfway done with the script already.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to be here for that. I'm going to watch that. That's going to be amazing.
it's
big. It's a big endeavor.
It's a huge endeavor. It's way bigger than what I thought it would be. But it's gonna get done. It's gonna get published. It's gonna be
Excellent.
fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, happy holidays, and just remember to keep it weird. That's how we like it.
Weird, Goblins.
Goblin Nation out.